So, good evening, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Let's Talk series organized by Aesthetic Medicine India and powered by Galderma. One of our most recent introductions, the Let's Talk series, will include 3 episodes, today being our first. And for each episode, we will invite 2 aesthetic medicine practitioners and they will discuss an aesthetic treatment along with some case studies. Today's webinar will focus on personalization with Restylane Define. I am Shriyal Sethumadhavan, the Executive Editor of Aesthetic Medicine India. And on behalf of the Aesthetic Medicine team, I would like to thank our partner, Galderma, our guest and speakers for today, and our viewers for joining us. Aesthetic Medicine is the original business-to-business magazine for discerning aesthetic professionals. Founded in the UK 18 years ago, the India edition is founded and led by the Professional Beauty Group. I would say it's a must read for medical practitioners such as dermatologists, clinic managers, cosmetic dentists, aesthetic doctors, plastic surgeons, selected aestheticians, and cosmetologists. Then the Aesthetic Medicine Expo and Conference was also introduced in India in 2019 with the aim of connecting the medical fraternity with the supply chain stakeholders and providing a platform for networking, sourcing, and training. Then came 2020, and since the world was besieged with the pandemic, we at Aesthetic Medicine continued working hard to keep the fraternity engaged. We took on the challenge and set ourselves on an exciting digital journey. In all success, the Aesthetic Medicine Digital Series were introduced, and our webinars and online interactions with experts have been instrumental in bringing vital information to practitioners on various aspects of dealing with the current situation, post-lockdown measures, clinic reopening strategies, and treatments and procedures that are in demand. So today, as I mentioned, our webinar organized by Aesthetic Medicine India and powered by Galderma will focus on personalization with Restylane Define. But before I detail the topic and introduce you all to the eminent speakers that we have with us today, here is a short video from our partner, Galderma. May we have the video, please?
Restylane has revolutionized my practice. In fact, I call it the Restylane revolution.
Restylane has changed my practice from a mostly surgical one to a minimally invasive one.
Hyaluronic acid fillers, and in particular Restylane, have tremendously changed what we can offer in cosmetic medicine.
Restylane at 25 years means the creation of extraordinary products using the most advanced science and technology that cosmetic injectables have to offer.
And I've been working with the Restylane for 20 years. When the product's in the market for 25 years, it does mean something. It means trustworthy.
So our patients are extremely happy at how natural they appear and how rested they appear and how much they look like they did just a few years ago. So I love it when people think that they got their hair done and didn't know they got fillers. That's the best part of all of this.
Après un traitement avec les produits Restylane, ce que j'entends le plus souvent de mes patients, c'est « Oh my God » lorsqu'ils se regardent dans le miroir.
I love at the end of my treatment, or even halfway through, to hand them the mirror and they get that wow. I just love that. When I am done the treatment, I hand them the mirror again and they go, I'm back.
Or someone say that people around me say that I've become more beautiful with a better image. Or someone say like that, my face has become much smoother and my skin feels more elastic.
We have people that are much more aware of how they don't want to look later in the years and how rested and refreshed they want to maintain their looks. So they aren't afraid of coming in and having things done and telling friends about it.
In the future, filler injection will just be part of what we do and make ourselves look better, look younger, and look fresher in a completely natural way.
Yes, we heard it right. Restylane, the original stabilized HA filler, celebrates 25 years of unmatched achievement. Having recorded high patient satisfaction over the years, the brand has been used for 50 million treatments and counting worldwide and enjoys a proven safety record with more than 160 clinical publications reporting data from more than 10,000 patients. So, in today's episode 1 of the Let's Talk series, we have Dr. Narmada Matang, dermatologist, New Skin Aesthetics Mumbai, as our subject matter expert, and Dr. Divita Buraya, consultant dermatologist, Bethani Hospital and Disha Skin and Laser Center, Thane, as the moderator, and both come together to talk about our topic for today, personalization with Restylane Define. Introducing our speakers with a few more words and requesting you to put on your videos as well. Dr. Narmada Matang, with over 20 years in practice, she has been involved in training fellow colleagues for aesthetic procedures. She is the founder of New Skin Aesthetics and practices in Powai, Mumbai. She is a certified international trainer in minimally invasive techniques for aesthetics. She has also been educating clients through online publication and her book, How to Look Like $1,000,000, along with a few other medical books. Thank you, Dr. Narmada, for joining us. Also introducing Dr. Divita Buraya. She has done her MD Dermatology from Grant Medical College and JJ Hospital, Mumbai. She has 7 years of experience in the field of aesthetic dermatology and dermatosurgery. She has worked with many eminent dermatologists in Mumbai and Thane. She has won the first prize for a paper presentation at Pigmentaricon 2016 and was also awarded scholarship at the Munich International Summer Academy of Practical Dermatology, where she was trained in advanced cosmetology techniques. Welcome, Dr. Divita. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today. I now request Dr. Narmada to begin the discussion with a presentation on today's topic, and Dr. Divita to then take the discussion forward with case studies and her questions for Dr. Narmada. We will have 45 minutes for this discussion, and we could then follow it with a Q&A with our attendees as well. And yes, for all my viewers and all my attendees watching us, do not forget to share your questions with our doctors today. If you see at the bottom of the screen, you would see a Q&A box. So please do key your questions into the Q&A box. The chat box is for any communication that you would want to have with me and my team. But the Q&A box is what the doctors are going to see at the end of today's session. So definitely we all are looking forward to a very engaging session today. And with that, over to you, Dr. Narmada and Dr. Divita.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice evening and such a pleasure to connect on this virtual platform. Thank you, Shriyal, for inviting us. I'm really looking forward to the discussion, and I'm being told more than 200 doctors have joined us. So without wasting much time, we'll start with a little bit of introduction. And as I see, we are all, there's so much education going on for all of us at various platforms as far as fillers are concerned. So let me just share screen now and take you through. So we're talking about Restylane fillers, and we're going to be touching upon the Restylane Define particularly. So when we talk about Restylane, I'd like to just mention that personalization is, what comes to your mind when you're looking at Restylane. And it is just so important to, keep all that you have learned in your mind and yet give a very personalized result to your patient. So what do you mean by personalization? It's, some of your patients who just want to maybe, and if you really look at the Restylane portfolio, it has relax, something to refine, and something to refresh. So it has that full, option which you can use to really give exactly what the patient needs or exactly what, according to you, will, give the best result in a very, very personalized manner. Now, talking about the Restylane fillers, so we have the Nasha and the OBT. So Nasha is the firmer, the thicker kind of a gel. And OBT stands for Optimum Balance Technology. The beauty about these products are that, it has come a long way. I remember I was just talking to Dr. Devita that when, me and my peers, when we were injecting way back in early 2000, we did not have any option and we had only Restylane at that point of time. And, Restylane as a product has come a long way with a lot of innovation that they have, brought upon in the portfolio that they have introduced now. So Nasha is your firm, lifting product, whereas OBT is your soft and flexible product where you really want to give maybe a little bit of volume, maybe retain the expressions. So typically in a lip, say the flexibility. Yeah. So that is the difference. And in Nasha, we have the Restylane Lift and Restylane Plain. And in the OBT technology, we have the Restylane Kiss, the Define, the Volyme, the other Restylane options which are yet to come to India. But I'm sure, you all would have used the Lift and the Restylane Plain also. And the kind of lift or the contouring that you get, especially when you're looking at cheek, is amazing. We'll talk about it more when we are, talking about the fillers and the cases. Now, Nasha is a technology. So we have two technologies, the Nasha and the OBT. Nasha as a technology gives a very, very natural and a very defined, it is a very precise in terms of where you want to inject and where it'll, where you want to really contour the face. It is a firm gel with a very low flexibility. So which is where you will probably use for contouring, for cheek, and all of these places. The tissue integration of this particular option is with a very limited distribution. So when you want contouring, when you want that projection, or when you want to lift the tissue, this is your choice. Yeah. So coming back to the OBT technology, it has various degrees of particle size. We'll get into that also a little later. But basically, when you talk about the optimum balance technology, it's softer and it's flexible. In the subsequent slide, and there's a slide video if you go ahead, Shril. Yeah, so Nasha is more for lifting and precision, where OBT, again, for contouring and expression. And in this slide, you can really see the pre and post injection, the way it integrates with the tissue and how the tissue will behave and add on, once you've injected. Can we move on? Yeah. So another very interesting thing will be, your G prime. I'm sure you've heard of this in all the classes that you would have attended. So the higher the G prime, the robust the product. Okay. So in this portfolio, Lift has the highest of G prime, and it is a very stable, very robust product. It will stay where you've injected. Typically, one would like to inject it onto the bone, and this is a product that you will need, end up using more for lifting the tissue in a patient where, you really want to contour and lift the tissue. Whereas the other OBT options that you have of Define or Volyme, the G prime is low. So these are the products which will actually end up attracting a lot of water and will volumize. So this, wherever you see the volume loss is where you will choose to use these products. Next slide. Yeah. So we're going to be touching upon Define today, typically, and I like to use this product in mid-face, when you're looking at the cheek volume loss, and of course the perioral area, especially in females above 40. We have a very good case which we will be discussing. the marionette, and I really like to use the cannula and just do a little bit of subcision before. What is amazing with this particular product is very little amount, and you get such refreshing and a good, volumizing of the tissue that you're dealing with. Next. So Define is definitely a great workhorse in the Galderma portfolio. It is the highest G prime in the OBT. Yeah. So of course it's less G prime than the Lift itself. Lift you will find is very, very robust. But in the OBT range, this is the one with the higher G prime compared to others like Restylane Kiss and Restylane Woline for that matter. We'll go ahead. Yeah, just see this video now. This is the Nasha, which is being put on a surface, and compared to OBT, so just to show you the difference on the viscosity, on the flexibility, look at that. Yeah, look at the flexibility of this product. So amazing, amazing result in lip specifically. And look at when there is a mechanical pressure on the product, look at the way it will behave. Again, look at the flexibility, look at the continued mechanical pressure on the gel and its behavior with that. Yeah, there. Yeah. So this OBT specifically in a very dynamic area or along with your Nasha, where you want, hardcore lifting and contouring, and then you add OBT more for volumizing is where you could combine the two. Next. Okay, so case discussions, we will, I would like Divita to take over, right?
Thank you for joining, and thank you for having me here on this wonderful platform. So first we'll have a general discussion and then we'll go ahead with the cases. So now the cosmetic dermatology is the new integral part of the dermatology curriculum. And so today we are delving into the various aspects of the fillers for the facial rejuvenation. So let's get the ball rolling, and we have an excellent audience. So once again, I request the audience to put their thoughts and questions in the Q&A box so that we can have an interactive and a comprehensive session. So Dr. Narmada, after practicing for more than a decade in Bombay and the most beautiful part of the city, how do you think how much patients are aware of fillers in terms of their knowledge and fear and the myth about fillers?
Brilliant way to start the discussion, Divita. Earlier, I keep talking this to the younger doctors that you guys are so lucky, because when we started our practice, we used to break our heads, educate your patient, and we used to really work very hard to explain the safety, and educate on every aspect, pre-injection and post the procedure, what all needs to be done. And the patient would always say that, okay, we will think about it and come back. But I'm pleasantly, happy that now patients are aware. In fact, they are not only aware, they are also asking the right questions. And the fact that we have so many options now, patients are actually choosing, from the various kind of products that are available. They're asking on complications. They're asking on, how would you be able to manage in case there would be any? And they're open to trying out maybe new indication also if you've suggested. So they're not sticking just to the nasolabial fold. They're talking about, and they're basically more aware. And repeat injections have definitely increased is what is my observance.
how difficult do you feel is it to convince a patient to make them understand that they need filler?
I think a lot over the last 5 or 10 years, a lot of education has happened for all of us in terms of what is your right patient that you select and what is the right kind of product you would choose. And I'm just very, very happy the way, Restylane has come with the options. So today I know that I have this robust one that I can choose from, or if I'm dealing with a thick skin, what is the product I need to be using vis-a-vis a thin skin? Or the fact that if I'm injecting around the eyes, which are the product, I have the right kind of product. So definitely that, is a little easy for me as a practitioner. Now, educating the patient, I think a lot of booklets are available. A lot of information on the internet is available. Instagram is, of course, going crazy on providing the entire procedure. So they are not only aware of what can be done, they are aware how it can be done as well. So I think that awareness has helped us. And it's not that difficult now to convince the patient. But I still tell, in all my trainings that I do, I still always tell, especially all my young doctors, that fillers is never an emergency. Never be in a hurry to do that procedure. You do it when your patient is fully convinced. You and your patient fully convinced is when you do the procedure, because you have to understand a little bit of psychology in this, that the patient might just, take a decision at that moment. But these are the patients who will always go back, always will have another opinion about themselves or about the procedure you have done. So educate them still, have a very long first consultation, but it's not that difficult to convince them now, I feel.
So basically, we have to give a lot of time to the patient for their counseling and hand-holding, and to make them understand the basic science of the fillers.
Right.
How does you choose your product depending upon the texture of the filler, the HA, and the G prime?
So I'll tell you, for all the classes that we attend, we are all touching upon this G prime. And so it's good to have that knowledge. It is good to have that understanding. So what do you mean by G prime, really? It is the viscosity and it is the firmness of the gel. Now, Restylane has come up with a very clear demarcation on NASHA and OPT. Higher the G prime, lesser the flexibility, more the firmness. So suppose I'm dealing with a male skin, which is maybe a lower heavy face, a thick skin. Now, typically in India, you will see in Indian skin, we do have thick skin. So we do need like a robust product to hold the tissue up. So that's where I would choose all my high G prime, right? But similarly, I was lost if I suddenly get a patient with a thin skin. And if I end up using like a robust product, it'll either just stand out or your patient will definitely come back, say that, she's not very happy because the product is just standing out in a thin skin. So you have these softer ones from the OPT portfolio that you can choose from. So it's good to have that knowledge of G prime, but it's very, very, practically put, firm for thick skin and soft for thin skin is what I would say.
So can we have a case discussion now? Please can you share the photographs?
Yes, sure, just doing that. Is the screen visible?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this patient came to me, he's 42 years old with a diabetic history. So he was very much worried about the premature aging he's going through. especially the sunken cheeks, hollowness around the eyes, and very prominent nasolabial folds. So how should we proceed with such type of patient?
Okay, so you said he's diabetic, right? So the first thing I would kind of check, any other medication he's on, and if his diabetes is under control, definitely we can
His
check.
diabetes is under control, but he's on anti-diabetic medicine from last 10 years.
Perfect, perfect. So now if you look at this face, good, thick male skin, typically you can see, a good amount of oiliness on that skin, which means that, it's well moisturized already, unlike a female of this age where you will also see some dryness and all of that. But definitely the mid cheek volume loss is giving him a very sunken kind of a look, and at the same time it is giving like a little sag laterally on the face because of the volume loss. So in this case, definitely my first approach would be volumizing that mid cheek, which is again not so common if you see Indian patients. But my choice of product here would be again from OBT. I may choose either Volime or Define with a cannula, go deep into the deep medial cheek fat pad, just below it, deposit the material, maybe fan it out a little, and that's what I would choose to do. And the teardrop, again, just with a needle, you could, I would choose the Restylane plain to address that. Moment you have addressed these two areas, you will see the nasolabial fold also improving. And if at all required later on, which will be my plan later, would be looking at the piriform fossa for him. After doing it, the nasolabial fold will correct a lot once you have done the cheek and the teardrop.
So we can notice that there's temporal hollowing also in this patient. Do you convince the patient that temporal hollowing, if you fill that area with filler, that will also help in improving the anti-aging, help in improving the aging skin?
In this case, if we're discussing this case, Devita, I would first do the mid face. Mid face itself will give like a lot of correction, and of course, if it was a female, then I would probably look at doing first the forehead. But males generally have like a good temporal muscle as well, and that would be something I would maybe plan later. But I would first do the mid face here.
What will be the maximum quantity of syringes you will be using?
Such a good question. So the beauty about, again, Restylane products is that, you can see a good amount of difference with a very limited product as well. Having said that, I think easily it's a male patient we have to remember. It's a thick skin that we are dealing with. And the choice that I have put forth is the OBT. So definitely about 1 ml on both the cheeks is what I would end up using. And maybe just 1 ml divided 0.5, 0.5 in the teardrop area of Restylane plain. So 3 ml in total.
In total 3 ml. And how will you plan for the follow-ups for this particular patient?
For plan for
the follow-up treatment?
Follow-up treatment, like I would just give him about a couple of weeks for the, the product to integrate with the tissue and settle. And once we've done that, maybe I could, if required, the piriform fossa, that will give him a lot of change, a lot of change.
Will you like to integrate the fillers with the toxin treatment in the very first setting or in different settings?
No, I do it in the same sittings. Earlier, when I had started, I would always segregate the two. It is a good idea. Now, typically, I'll tell you, when I'm doing chin, right? Again, this I incorporated and I've started practicing that a lot. That first, whenever you're looking at filling an area like chin, you relax the mentalis and just leave the patient for about a week and then plan to do the chin filler. So that is the only place where I would probably not mix because my volume requirement and all of that is assessed in a relaxed state of mentalis muscle, especially when it is hyperactive and wobbly, when you see the mentalis hyperactivity. But other than that, upper face, along with filler, mid face, if you want to do fillers, and upper face, if you want to do toxin, I do it in the same setting, really.
And in such patients with a history of diabetes, what is the probable timing that we can say that filler will stay for him? The effect of the fillers will stay for him?
See, it's very important, in the first consultation itself, moment you know that there are, other medical conditions involved at an age of 50 or 50 plus, my blanket statement to them is that the lasting of the product and the results altogether will be slightly under the influence of a lot of other medical conditions that we are under. So do not commit, how long it will last. Generally, give an arbitrary timeline. You don't know, what is the status of diabetes, although it is controlled. There's so many factors that will be involved in product, biodegradation of the product. How is one living? What is the stress value? So moment I see diabetes, hypertension, or any other thyroid, I tell them that we are under these conditions and the lasting will be maybe a little compromised or, faster. So, and they're okay with it. They understand that. So I do not commit, but generally I would say anywhere between say 9 to 12 months, or generally a follow-up of 6 months, 8 months. And if you feel, you just do the top up.
Yeah, we can call the patients after 6 months, and maybe the touch-up sessions may not require the same amount of fillers. Even a lesser amount will
gives
and convince. So let us go to our case discussion second. So she's a 62-year-old female with concern about her aging skin and the face. Her main concern for fillers was that she is on anti-epileptic medicines also from last 5 years. And there's a traumatic scar on her forehead also. So she was asking that, can we go for the fillers to heal that traumatic scar as well? And what else we can do for her face?
I would say, Dr. Devita, this is a very, very interesting and a very challenging case. Interesting because she is on epileptic drugs. Now a patient will always have these questions, and it's very important to take that medical history, any patient that you see above 40s, right? Coming to her epilepsy bit, what is our apprehension? Lidocaine, right? All the drugs now come with lidocaine, and if you look at 1 ml syringe, it says, if you look at the booklet, it says 3 milligram of lidocaine per ml. So if you're using 1 ml of filler, you're using about 3 milligram. Now, if you go back to the drug interactions, lidocaine is a relaxing agent and will actually help relax the patient to a large extent. However, in a larger dose, it will be something that can trigger an epilepsy. So what is that dose? It's about 15 milligram. Now, when will you end up injecting 15 milligram? If you're doing, say, more than 8-10 syringes, which again, I am totally, I have my reservations too. And that is also in animal studies and all. Second thing, what can trigger an epilepsy is the pain. Yeah. So these are the two things that I would be careful about. Now, generally, you are safe, you are okay. Pain, if you can counsel your patient while you're injecting, and use little bit of cream, local application anesthesia, also the patient is calm. So pain is less likely in that case. And if you're controlled on your ml of injections, which is 3 milligrams per ml of lidocaine, you are in a safe zone. But still take this history, still discuss with your patient, and then plan your injection. Plan your injection in a very calm, confident manner. The patient should be okay. The confidence of, the patient should be confident that whatever the doctor is doing with capability of in any adverse event will be able to manage me. So once your patient is confident of that, I'm sure we are in a absolute safe zone. So we could now, her scar if is on the forehead, right?
Yes, very mildly visible.
Very, very mildly visible. But again, I'll tell you, Dr. Devita, that is a danger area, a danger zone, where I have now in my own practice refrained from injecting anything around that area in the glabellar complex. So I would counsel my patients, see, end of the day, you want to go home and sleep and at least not mess up a patient for cosmetic reasons. Okay, it's a healthy individual, and God forbid, and there are reports, there are so many cases that have happened, and in India we don't even know, there's no reporting happening. So why would you really want to? Does it bother her so much? Okay, in fact, in her, I would counsel her that if we do her mid face and look at the heaviness on the cheeks, right? Now, if we give her lateral lift with Restylane lift, if this would be my choice of patient for define in the perioral area. If we are able to just give her a lateral lift, lateral cheeks, if we inject, give her that lift, if we do a good job on the periorbital area, I think her attention from this scar will go away. And of course, a little bit on the tear trough as well. That itself will give her such a good change. And then you counsel her to move away. I stopped injecting into the glabellar complex scars or even your wrinkles.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And do you prefer to do any sensitivity tests before going for fillers, or just a normal history of any drug reaction is more than enough?
So I have these very typical questions over the years that I have realized in my life of filler injecting of the last 18, 20 years. I have not come across any patients, but having said that, doesn't rule out. So I have this one question, very categorical. Are they allergic to any medication that they're aware of? And the second one is, have they taken any local anesthesia before? If they haven't, then it is a slight concern to me, and doing a little lidocaine test is something that I indulge in. If they have, and generally, patients who come to us, especially for fillers, are very rarely very young. They are all post 30s and 40s. So they would have undergone some or the other dental work with the local anesthesia and all. So then I just go ahead. But I do take that history, keeping in mind that, now that all the fillers and more started injecting only the lidocaine fillers now.
Ma'am, where are the specific areas where you prefer cannula over needle?
So earlier, Devita, where my trainings have happened, we were extensively taught on cannulas, and so because of those trainings, I think I became very, very, and this is totally personal, that I became very confident with cannula. And at that point of time, we used to use 18 gauge cannulas. So we did not have the ones that we use now, the 25s and the 27s. Now, 27 is something, again, I refrain from, but 25, 23 is what I use. I've stopped using the 18 gauge as well. So typically, if cannula I'm using, I love to use the cannula for temporals. So entry from the lateral, most arched point of the zygoma. And subcutaneous injections, just use a 23 gauge cannula. The other area is the perioral area, where you have your marionette. And this is, I find, in especially 40 plus women, there is that typical fold, and it bothers almost each one of us. And you enter from the jawline with a 25 gauge plain or non-serrated cannula, and just do that little bit of subcision just with 0.3 ml. You will see wonderful results. So these are the two areas which I really, really prefer using cannulas while injecting.
I just want to share one of my case with you, that once I had two sisters which was convinced to take a filler, but at the same time they were a little worried about the cost and how the effect will come on them. So they were insisting me for sharing the syringe between the two. And then later on, depending on how the effect will come, they will prepare for the follow-up session. So what is your opinion about it?
Okay, to be very, very honest and upfront, yes, I have done it. I had the same situation between mother and daughter. The daughter was getting married and the mother had come. So there are only very few cases, Dr. Devita, that I would have used one syringe on the same day within those two people who are related. Other than that, I do not believe, and I do discuss with my patient that I may save some, but this is your syringe. So what you end up paying is for the whole syringe. And I never ever, in all my practice, I never ever just use half a syringe, or even if the patient requires half a syringe, I end up using it in some other part, but I do not charge and use half syringe. They pay for the full syringe and I use the full syringe. So I'm a little wary of doing these kind of things. So I would have done it. I have done it, but it's only that particular day in those two individuals who have come in together and, finish the syringe.
And what I personally feel, that if 1 ml of syringe is giving 100% result, the half ml may not give you 50%. So we always have to tell the patient the optimum quantity of filler to be used to get perfect results. Patient may not be satisfied if you use half ml, if they require 1 ml.
Yeah.
And if suppose you have used half ml of syringe, how do you store them and for how much long time?
So half ml is rarely, like you said, to get proper result.
0.6, 0.8 ml if you have.
So I generally, especially when I do the teardrop, I always undercorrect. Always. So I end up using 0.8 ml. So that 0.2 or 0.1, I always save it. And I give the patient 2 weeks, and especially the first timers, because they are a little wary, will it swell and, will it be visible and stuff like that. But not more than 2 weeks. And again, saving it, remove the needle, you save that, the cork, and label it, seal the syringe, label it, keep it in the fridge. In the fridge, nothing else stays. Now that fridge is meant only for toxins, only for fillers, the leftover fillers and the toxin which has been opened. Nothing else, not even water, like of course water and ice that we use, but no food items, nothing goes in there which is opened. So I do store it, but I discard it completely once the patient has not turned up, or and we educate them that I will not be able, it is not good for you. So 1 or 2 days here and there is okay, but if they come after 1 month, they do not have.
So we have an excellent audience and they have put some questions in the Q&A box. So ma'am, can we take few questions from the audience now?
Sure. Where do I go? From the chat box, Q&A box, right?
Gautam has asked that do we need to aspirate while using fillers?
Absolutely yes, Gautam. Absolutely yes. Every time you inject, especially your deep injections, however experienced you are, how many ever fillers you have done, always aspirate. Now you will see these articles which say that filler doesn't protect you from whatever adverse events that can happen of an arterial occlusion, but always aspirate, and moment you get your blood, move out, do not inject. Simple things.
So there is one saying also that you should aspirate and wait for 10 to 15 seconds.
Yes.
Watch and then you inject.
And then you inject.
If you have blood, immediately remove the needle, put pressure and discard that blood mixed filler, and we still use the remaining filler. Is it right?
So you discard the needle immediately, and if
the blood gets mixed with the filler, because it has happened with me once.
Oh.
That got mixed with the filler, so I discarded the filler. The blood is out, and when I got the transparent gel again, then the remaining amount I injected on the other side.
Absolutely perfect.
So that it doesn't get wasted. The full filler doesn't get wasted.
Yeah.
We have one more question from Gautam. That in case of any mishap, can hyaluronidase help us?
Of course it can. So every time you're injecting, and I'm sure, in every class, whenever you're injecting, first thing when I do my trainings, I tell the doctors is never be in a hurry. Close the door, no in and out. You're injecting into the piriform fossa, your eyes should be on the nose. You're injecting anywhere on the cheek, your eyes should be on the tissue around. Wherever you're injecting, your eyes should be there, your mind should be there. Always keep watching. You see any color change, any doubt, any blanching, any changes, stop, address, and then go on. Of course, I always have a vial of hyaluronidase in my clinic, and thankfully, we just throw it. It expires and we throw it. But then, yes, I mean, I've dissolved so many fillers. In fact, dare I say, 2018, I was dissolving more than injecting, to be honest. It's sad, but it is. Also, remember now, all of us are doing so much. Earlier, we were doing very little. So now the scale has gone up. So more the injections, you will have more challenges, and you will have situations where you need to dissolve. So yes, hyaluronidase is always better, rather than wait, or rather than live with something that the patient is unhappy with.
So it's like whenever you're buying a filler, at the very same time, you should buy the hyaluronidase, because you never know when you will require, and you can't run at the end moment to find it.
Doctor, the challenges I've faced is when, patient has been injected in some other country with some other filler, so you don't even know, and you're just dependent on patient's information, because you don't have document of where or what filler was done. So those are real challenges which, as you practice, you will come across. So there are times I have called up a doctor in UK just to get the precise information. And also remember, see, these patients who go and inject in so many places, they may not remember, they may not, have precise or exact details, but you as a physician need to have those details to be able to provide results, especially if somebody else has injected. So as far as possible, my communication to the client is go back to the same doctor for your own benefit and get the doctor to dissolve it for you. But if it is some other country, then take a day or two, sit and understand, spend that time with your client, and if possible, connect to that doctor so that you're giving the best even when you're dissolving.
Yes, true. Even the quantity of Hyalase to inject is a big question. That in which area and after using which type of filler and the amount of filler, how much we have to inject. So even Shakil Syed has the same query that how much of Hyalase is required with Nasha filler and OPT filler, and how do you decide the quantity of Hyalase?
So generally, I mean, if we really look at, say, tear trough, which is what he's asked, right? So tear trough, if you want to dissolve, so first you will do your dilution. Yeah. Now, once you've done that, especially when I'm doing the tear trough area, I hyper dilute it. Okay. Now, hyper dilution is, again, what are you looking at? So if you're looking, say 1 ml was done, so you would have ideally say 0.5 and 0.5. Always do your dissolving in steps. Never do it at one go. So if you're using insulin syringe, so whatever the dilution that you do 1 ml in 15,000 units, right? The Hynidase, you make that solution and then you hyper dilute it. I generally take, say, 4 units of the diluted Hynidase and another 4 of normal saline. Okay, and then it'll be unit wise. So tear trough, I would use, say, the hyper diluted maybe 2 to 4 units in one go. Wait at least 48 to 72 hours. Also prepare your patient when you're diluting that you will see the swelling. There might be a swelling because obviously you've injected. So you don't want to do too much to end up with the swelling. Remember, your patient has already come in with a dissatisfaction. Now your quantity should be so controlled, or you can further hyperdilute and use again 2 units, especially when you're looking at tear trough. Very tricky it is.
So whenever patient is coming for dilution, first thing we have to counsel him a lot. And we as a doctor, we should not get panicked.
Yeah.
And we should do Hyalase thing in a very slow and gradual way. Because if we overzealously put more Hyalase, it may dissolve the natural collagen there.
Correct.
So instead of helping the patient with the filler, we are putting him in the wrong position. So with Hyalase also, we have to be very careful and have to inject.
And remember, your patient will be very impatient.
Yeah.
Moment they have made up their mind that they want, there is an option of dissolving, and when they have made up their mind, they will, they'll be after you to dissolve it. So
they will insist the doctors that do it in one sitting. We have to come again after 48 hours and come again and again. So we have to counsel them that this is the required amount. We can't just go and putting Hyalase also.
Yeah, totally agree.
So one question is like, can we use threads lift along with the fillers in the same session, or sequentially we can put?
Sequential, I think, would be advisable. And do the, I don't know which thread you're talking about, but do the lifting with the thread. Once you've got good amount of lift, probably your calculation on the amount of filler required might go less. And separately, now we have threads with fillers also.
So first we'll go with the threads, and then for how much time we have to wait?
Then wait at least for 15 days.
For 15
2 weeks, yeah.
The quantity of lift may also depend on which type of thread you are choosing.
Thread you're using, exactly. That's what I said. Like if you're using cork threads, then maybe you don't require filler at all. Or you will just require in a different area maybe.
So do we have more time? Can we take a few more questions?
Yes, we can take like 2 to 3 more questions. Yes.
So we have one question from Sai Pawar, that what method and products do you prefer for tear trough correction?
So for tear trough in the Restylane portfolio, Restylane Plain gives very good result. I wouldn't choose a very high G prime for obvious reasons. Though Restylane is good G prime, it's less than Lift, but it's more than OBT. Now here you have to remember your choice of filler depends on how much water it will attract as well. You don't want that too much in tear trough. And also remember the tissue here. You have the skin and then you have your orbicularis oculi as a sheet and then you have your bone. So moment you're injecting a firmer material, you end up with a hard lump which will take a long time for tissue integration. So my choice will be simple plain Restylane, right? And OBT you don't want to choose because again, it will volumize too much. So Restylane Plain is perfect and you see the results. You will forget using anything else for tear trough.
So Aarti Gupta is asking that how many syringes should be done in first session? Maximum number of syringes in the first.
See, nowadays, I'll tell you, everybody, like I said, is injecting, but especially in your first session, when your patient is doing it for the first time, do that one little area, assess the full face, and do that one area which is concerning your patient. Always do that first. Let the patient experience and feel. Trust me that even 1 ml will give you very good result, will leave your patient, and patients will always be comfortable that they're very anxious when they're getting it done for the first time. So do assess, do that one area which requires the most, which will give the major change in the face, a drastic change with just very little quantity. But you could choose to do 2 ml also, right? So suppose you're doing tear trough 1 ml, that's it. You don't require anything more than that. Call the patient back, let them. So at least in my practice, I have seen if I do just little bit, ask them, we will do it. I'm not denying we will do it, but let's do this one and then let's plan. And also your patients will always like if you have a plan for 6 months, 1 year, they are engaged. So aesthetic practice is not only about, at least I don't want all you youngsters who are, starting to inject, wrinkle, dekha, inject and forget. No, always assess. Your assessment, your first consultation should be so elaborate that the patient, when he's leaving from your clinic, doesn't have any questions anymore about fillers, right? And then you plan. This is what we do now. This is what we do after 15 days or 2 months. Then I follow you up after 4 months or 6 months or 8 months, and then plan your. So, the patient is also getting engaged on how you have, okay, 4 months, I have to go and, go for my follow-up. So never do too much in the first go. Always do what is required. Just about 1 ml to begin with, but you could do in the first session itself if the patient is ready for it.
Even after 1 ml of syringe, patient will gain confidence. His anxiety will go away. For the second session, he will be more comfortable.
More open, yeah. More open to newer indication also. Because now they've understood what the procedure is all about and how the filler behaves once it is injected for you.
What is the product of choice for marionette lines, volume or define?
Defined. One word, defined. It's really
Design is
changed.
very flexible and it will
Very
just mold into your folds.
Yeah. Also, see, this is again very mobile part of your face, right? So Restylane Kiss, we know, Kiss you do, it gives very natural, brilliant results. And then comes your next part is your marionette. So here again, like I said, just point to if you put also gives very, very wonderful results.
One last question, ma'am. This is by Megha. Do we need to do sensitivity tests for high lays always? Do you?
Well, ideally one should, but also remember, like we were discussing, even when you're injecting, you're doing very little quantity. So that itself acts as a
Sensitivity test.
testing. Yeah.
Yeah, we are injecting hardly 2 or 4 units in one session, and then we will wait for 40 hours. So we will be knowing what exactly the patient is having, whether having any problem or, and we can go ahead in the later sessions. So, one good point for the quick advice for the beginners who are doing it for the first time, what they should keep in mind. Any quick advice?
I would say just go ahead. If you really ask me, I want to see all of us dermatologists really taking over the fillers. Just go ahead, confidently inject. Yeah, I mean, and there's so much information available. Uh, just make it your everyday practice. And really, my vision is fillers, dermatologists. That's what we should be really, really confident, and we should be the ones who are injecting maximum. And the world is waiting. I mean, there's so many patients wanting to do it. Just confidently go ahead, inject, do not fear, but keep in touch with your patient. Do not fear if there is any adverse event. Discuss those cases, and have a mentor who will be there and who will help you manage. And trust me, there are a lot of senior doctors you can connect to if at all, but definitely start injecting.
How do you combine different modalities, such as laser or energy-based devices, with fillers?
See, no phase. If you and if again, if you go back to the trainings, the trainings that I do, when you're assessing the phase, right? So your planning or your treatment for that patient is not complete without your peels and lasers and post care in terms of products. So definitely incorporate that. Now, whatever volume loss or asymmetry or toxins, you do that, but then you finish it up with your lasers, your peels. So definitely do that. 15 days, 2 weeks is a good time, and always plan things, because you don't want your patient to just do fillers and go away. You want them to be in touch with you. You also want to see them after a couple of weeks if anything more is required in terms of dermal filler itself. But definitely incorporate, everything put together gives that wow. And maintenance is definitely required. Doing filler is not the end of the story, really, right? Dr. Devita, you tell me.
Yes, same thoughts, ma'am. That we should try out different fillers and gradually counsel the patient and do it. Ma'am Said has one more question, that in case you have, if the patient is having under eye bags, in that case, how should we proceed for a filler? How should we go ahead?
Under eye bags, right? Now, counseling definitely should include that. If you want to get rid of it permanently, then definitely you need surgical option. Yeah. Suppose the patient says, no, I don't want that surgical option. There are certain techniques that you can do where you camouflage your eye bag in a manner that at least on a still face, they will not be visible. Okay, when the patient is animating, it may, but whatever it is, and I have some before afters that, I wish I could just share right now, but you can definitely do a lot with just tear trough fillers. You go deep, inject onto the bone, and just below that fat pad, as in not beneath, but adjacent in the hollow, so that everything looks one. I mean, you basically camouflage with a filler, dermal filler.
And before injecting with a patient with an under eye bag, will you like to investigate him thoroughly?
Yes, of course, of course.
So what are basic investigations?
Why that, one is, of course, it's a genetic way of aging, which is common. But like I said, in the medical history, you want to rule out the renal pathologies. You want to rule out anything underlying which could just give that bloating, any hormonal disturbances, which is giving that kind of a look bloated, or how often it's happening, and does it also go away. But you can really make out the fat pad. I mean, if it's an aging change of the face, you can really make that out. Alcohol, for instance, will the patient will have a lot of puffy eyes. uh, Alcoholics will come up with that.
We will have to bring this session to an end. If there is a last point that you all would like to share on a concluding note, we take that, and we will have to conclude for the evening. So any last word on the concluding note, Dr. Divita and Dr. Narmada?
I think with proper anatomical knowledge and proper selection of patient and selection of the product, the filler which we are using, we can create magic with fillers.
Great, I totally second that. And
plus a aesthetic sense.
Aesthetic sense, yeah. And all I would say is keep in touch with your patients. They are really, really wanting you to help them. And to all the new budding dermatologists, go ahead, inject and enjoy. It's something that you can really enjoy, the kind of change that you can give to a personality in their confidence levels. Even if it is an aging face or a young face, the way they start seeing themselves gives you a lot of satisfaction. And thank you, Shriyal. This was really, really nice.
I must say that you all gave such a perfect start to our Let's Talk series. The session was absolutely amazing, and I'm sure my all my viewers would agree as well. Very informative, very insightful. So really, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you all here. And with that, I would also like to thank our viewers for joining us. I've seen some very good questions coming in the Q&A box. So I think that only added to a lot of information that was already coming to the table for us. I would also like to thank our partner, Galderma. Thank you for all the support in putting this, helping us put this event together and supporting us all through. We've also had a dedicated team working towards working towards putting this entire event together. So thank you to the team. And yes, this brings us to the end of today's webinar on personalization with Restylane Define. The webinar was organized by Aesthetic Medicine India and powered by Galderma. We've come to the end of this evening, but like we said in the beginning, it's a series. So stay tuned. We are going to be coming up with much more. And for all the viewers, if you all have any more questions to today's session, you all can always connect with me and my team. And we would always be happy to come back to you all. Thank you so much, Dr. Narmada. And thank you so much, Dr. Divita. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, Dr. Divita.
Thank you, Narmada ma'am.
Have a great day.
The whole team of Restylane.
Yes.
And aesthetic medicine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And have a great evening, everybody. And stay safe and take care.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.